I've read that you decided at age 8
I
to
did.
become a lawyer.
I did.
What did you know about lawyers?
Well, it was unusual. I it was an interesting story. I was, well, I think it was something precocious, I guess, or brazen, as my parents would call it. And I had a toothache. And one day coming home from school, I stopped at the dentist's office, African American dentist's office en route. I go in the office and he gives me a full set of x-rays and the whole treatment. I'm in there for almost 2 hours. And I come home late, and that's the end of that. And my parents don't ask anything about where I had been or because they assumed I'd been over a friend's house or something. The bill came from the dentist. I mean, it was some huge sum of something like $100.
Sure.
Back then, it was big money. And so when my parents saw that, they said, "What is this? You didn't have any permission to go to the dentist. You know, that's supposed to be discussed with us." You know, and it was. So my father was on the railroad. He said, "Look, there was a court. You know, have to appear in court a certain date because they didn't pay the bill, and they tapped the notice up on the door. You have to pay the court." And so the parents, my mother said, "I'm going to school," and my father said, "I'm not going to miss this trip on the railroad because you and I have, you know, one of the family friends to go with you down to the court, but you're going to have to go down there." And I mean, I'm about 8, 9 years old.
Really?
And that they put, and so he had the family friend, an older gentleman, and we go to court that morning. I never will forget it. The judge, the lawyer, the dentist doesn't show up, but the dentist lawyer is there. He called the case, and I go up with the family friend. And the judge looks at me and asked me, they read out what had happened, and the judge asked me, leaned over and asked me, robes on, now I was very intimidated. This is the courthouse, everything.
Sure.
He said, "Young lady," I said, "Yes." He said, "Did you have your parents' permission to go to the dentist?" Julian, it was a quandary for me. Because if I said no, I didn't have permission, it made me look as if I were a disobedient child. It made, you know, if I said yes, it made me look as if I were, you know, doing what children ordinarily do, with the parents' permission, acting according to the way you were supposed to act. And something told me to tell the truth. It said, "Look, if you just tell the truth." And I said, "No, Your Honor, I didn't." And he then turned to the lawyer for the dentist and said, "Well, then does your client have the practice of doing full mouth x-rays on 8-year-olds when they walk into the office with no slip, no call to the parents, nothing? Case dismissed." And I, you know, I stood there. Now, had I said, yes, I had permission, my folks would have had to pay that money.
Right.
And so then I always knew something about truth, but the power of truth came through to me then. The power of truth. Do not lie. My mother would say, Elaine, I hate a liar. She would say, I hate a tell the truth. You know, so when I got home, you know, I was able to, we celebrated that moment.
Yes, I'm sure.
We celebrated that moment. But then all of the segregated water signs I would see when I would go to church and then bus, you know, we would all have to sit in the back of the bus. The fear in the neighborhood when the police came through, you know, with the guns on the hip, they were all white. You know, just the impact of racism on the African American community was pervasive. It was profound, and it was never ending. You always saw it. And so then I made the connection between law and change.